Oh, pesky note taker. Hello.
So how do you pronounce your first name?
Kitae.
Kitae. Well, nice to meet you, Kitae. I'm Leslie.
Nice to meet you.
And
How are you
thanks.
today?
I'm doing okay. So I heard you say you're a pesky vote taker. So
Oh, yes. Sometimes it just joins meetings. I'm like, I don't need you in this meeting.
well, it wants to keep you company.
Yeah.
Well, I am hopeful that we'll have an okay attendance for today. We sent out the invite this morning, so fingers crossed.
Okay. Yeah, so just to give you a short little background into why I'm here. So basically, I gave a talk at Future Spaces a couple of months ago. I don't know if you're aware of Future Spaces, but it's an experiential design podcast by Josh Goldblum. He asked me to speak there and kind of talk about my experience working in the art world. And then Sean reached out to me, and we had a nice little meeting, and she suggested that I come in and present to you all. So that's how it happened.
No,
Oh, there
I'm
she
super
is.
excited. Yeah, and yeah, Shan told me, and yeah, thank you so much for making the time. That's super sweet.
Of course. Shannon, I love your shirt. The Death Stranding shirt represent.
Ready.
Eh,
I
great
actually
game.
got it from one of the interns here.
Mm.
I didn't know it was that big.
Oh yeah, that
Yeah.
game like totally blew up during COVID.
So you have your influencer mic there, like a streamer
Yeah.
microphone?
Yeah, actually my brother gave it to me as a present, so I was like, okay, I'll take it. But now it looks like, yeah, I should start a podcast.
Yeah. Damn,
Hello. Good afternoon.
I think our invite might go out a little bit like late. The invite went out this morning. So I don't know if a lot of people will be coming. Uh, should we wait for a bit more,
Okay,
Leslie?
yeah,
So yeah, so Shan, why don't I send I'll send out just a reminder. I'll do that right now, but we normally wait till 5 after.
okay, no problem. It's cool that you guys do these sort of presentations. I've noticed that a couple of companies have started doing this. My old office used to do it, but it was like a Friday lunch and learn, and we'd have guests sometimes, but it wasn't super frequent, so it's nice to have something like this.
Well, I didn't know you do like I didn't know you do that for other companies, like consulting, advising things on that.
Oh yeah.
Like what type
You,
of company do you usually work with?
so it depends. So I have a couple of friends who are more in the advertising space, like you guys, who have done experiential and they really want to do more of it. So I consult with people like that. A lot of them are architecture firms who also want to get into more experiential, who, they are really interested in art and technology and kind of doing more creative projects, not doing as many residential and commercial. So consulting with folks like that. Um, and then in the art world, they don't really have a good sense of architecture or design. So consulting with companies like that who are typically, smaller artist studios, and they want to do bigger installations and need an architect or um, consulting or advisory from someone who's done a lot of interactive and immersive projects. So it kind of runs the gambit. I sit at like a weird intersection of art, architecture, and experiential, just based upon my training and then my background working for Raphael Studio, and then running my own agency for a little bit, and then having this startup Foveate. So kind of a funny intersection of AEC, events, and art. But I'll get into that in the talk anyway, so you guys will kind of understand how that happened, and then how that took me to where I am now.
Cool. Leslie, are you recording it or shall I do that?
I am trying to screen capture, yes.
Okay,
if you want to
cool. Very nice.
give it a shot too. I can't do it. I can't use Teams recording because I didn't send out the invite originally, but yeah.
Okay. Yeah, let's do it that way. So,
Isn't it amazing how all these video calling apps didn't get better during COVID? I feel like they got worse. Like they all got harder for some reason.
I am not a fan of Teams. I can just tell you that right off the bat.
I just wish they had one big button in the top corner that said record, like an old camera or something. And then that's it. But I don't need all the bells and whistles and emojis and different views and stuff.
I'm right there with you. All right. Well, it is 1:05. So why don't we get started? And fingers crossed we're able to record it so that everyone will post it afterwards, so everyone can appreciate this. So, and thank you so much again.
Okay.
Yeah, and yeah, that's fine. I just felt like labs would probably be the department that's like most interested in this anyway. So like I'm here and I think I'll reach out in the future. Yeah. So let's get started.
Okay. So do you want to go first, Shan, or should I go first?
I could do a little bit of intro of this.
Okay.
So I invited Kitae, is it?
Kitae.
Kitae. So as our guest speaker today, so a few months back, I attended another talk that he was giving, and he showed some of the large-scale interactive art installations that he has been working on over the past a few years, and it was like, oh, you can build a career just by doing that. And everybody loves experiential design. Like we creative people working in advertising agency for sure love them, and clients usually claim that they love them and wanted to do more. So it's been a question that has been haunting me for many, many years, that how do we keep doing it? Like not just once, but like over and over again. So I think the one thing I learned from GSP in the past couple of years is that trying to make interactive work happen is really, really hard. Like not the making part of it, but like all the peripheral things. Like usually those projects are more expensive for clients. They're like more legal stuff around AI, and like we gotta promote that too. Like we already put in so much time and effort creating a cool experience. We gotta promote that too. And also when we're always trying to create something that is like first of its kind, I feel like maybe it is naturally against the spirit of business, because like by building a successful business, you want to scale something or reproduce something that is at the lowest cost as possible. But then we always trying to build this unique experience. We put in this art time. Maybe it's just inherently opposite of the nature of business. So with all those like questions in mind, I'm inviting Kitae to like do a presentation for us with all his like experience in like art, architecture, interactive work, experiential design. So not saying all of those questions can be answered in this session, but I think we can at least start talking about them.
Yes, thank you so much for having me, Sean. So I'm Kitae Kim. Like she was saying, my background comes from architecture, trained as an architect, and then moved on to the art world, and eventually larger experiential. I'm just going to share my screen here so you guys can see this. All right. So I'm going to give you guys a little briefer version of what I showed at Future Spaces, and it'll help you understand my background and then why I'm here today. But at Future Spaces, I gave this talk about how these really big interactive experiential installations actually come together, how we were pitching and proposing them to clients, and then how do we get them funded, and then how do we turn them into events or permanent installations that could be enjoyed by people, whether it's at museums, public art, or touring installations. So this is me, Kitae Kim. I studied architecture and art at the University of Michigan, and then I went on to work at the studio of the artist Raphael Lozano Hemmer in Montreal for about a half decade, where I was the lead architect there. I kind of made up a term for myself, experiential architect, and I was also an interactive developer. And then later on, I would leave that studio in about 2022 to start my own company and startup, which is Fovi. So here is a little video trailer, a reel of some of the projects I worked on. These are all sorts of massive and intimate installations that would range from the scale of nanoparticles all the way up to giant cross-border installations. We played with light, sound, biometric sensors, interactive through voice, through touch, through camera sensing, and we would create all these different artworks that would engage the public and many times live on to either be during installations like you see here at the end or permanent installations that live in the world. So how did I find myself experiential? Well, I just kind of wrote an email to Raphael one day just talking about Brexit and kind of pitched myself as a job. He didn't respond for like 2 weeks. Little did I know he was on vacation. And then it turned out that he actually really resonated with that message. It was like, oh, we should get on a Skype call. And this is back in like 2016, so Skype was still a thing. There, I joined an awesome team. I started with about 8 other coworkers, and we were building these installations. Raphael's been doing this for about 15 years at the time, 20 years. So he'd been doing it a long time, but it was still a very, very small studio. And then over my half decade there, I would help grow this team to about 20 people. So we just about doubled in size during my time there. And it was a whole group of designers, architects, fabricators, programmers, production assistants, gallerists, what have you. So our business is really as a small art studio, which honestly operates very much like an agency. Here you get a little behind the scenes of what working there was like. Probably the biggest difference between ourselves and the agency is that we had a whole in-house R&D team that was basically the main focus of the business, right? We have all sorts of overhead that you guys probably would not want, right? Like we were buying searchlights, computers, all sorts of hardware and electronics, writing firmware, being able to create the innards of the installations. And by doing the R&D, both the hardware and software, that is also what allowed us to charge premium prices, right? Because we were literally inventing things from scratch. Whereas with most agencies, they're buying things off the shelf, then just deploying them, or usually typically renting them. So kind of our difference was that we were making a lot of this stuff in-house. And eventually, we would go on to kind of figure out, how do we not have to do this custom every single time? How can we make this a more repeatable process and turn this small art studio into more of a functioning business? So over my half decade there, that was a big part of what I was doing, is not only pitching and concepting these projects, but also trying to help us figure out, how do we turn this into a more sustainable operation? So like I said, I pitched myself a job there. There was no position for me. There was no job description. So I had to go and figure out myself. And I had basically seen the work that Raphael had done before, which was pretty big installations. And I said to him in my cold email, I was like, you probably need an architect. You're working on projects that are so massive, but it's obvious to me that you don't have somebody who actually operates at the scale of architecture, someone who can help inform the permanent nature of some of these works, integrate them into sites, help explain to museums or galleries or wherever we're exhibiting a piece, how we're going to put this all together. I could tell from the beginning that they were working in a pretty outdated way, because they were just using things like Photoshop to collage together essentially little mood boards or concepts of what these installations were supposed to be. And one thing I did there was move us away from flat 2D and bring real-time rendering in. This is back in 2016. I learned about this game engine called Unreal Engine 4, and I started adapting it to fit our needs, creating these interactive artworks. And it was really great because our artworks, things move. You touch your touch sensors, put your hands on top of heartbeat sensors, which take your biometrics and make light bulbs flash with them, searchlights that move across the sky, cameras that track where you are in space. None of this can really be communicated with a flat slide deck. So this is where I really got to innovate and start to do pitches interactively in virtual reality. And we found that once we started doing that, our win rate skyrocketed from, I want to say, like 30% to over 80%. So it was just a huge increase in win rate. But of course, it takes a lot of time and my specialized efforts to do. But it was something that I was well equipped to do, given my background in architecture, being able to 3D model, being able to interact with technology and explain it in a way that clients can understand. Because I recognize that most clients are not technical people, right? They could not tell you how big 13 feet is, right? So you really need to hold their hand and walk them through an idea fully. And that's where virtual reality and real-time 3D and interactivity really came into the pitch process because all those things are so much more intuitive for someone to understand than a simple deck. And then over my time there, I would grow to not only be working on the pre-production side, concepting and pitching and winning projects, but to actually help start delivering them. So my whole first year, I only worked on RFPs, did like 35 in my first year. We just cranked them out once every 2 weeks. We did a different RFP. But then that's what helped secure us the funding to grow the studio and to double size and hire all those people, because now we had to deliver on these projects after getting all the deposits. So this would allow us to build these installations, start figuring out how we're going to tour them, and then start to do permanent projects. So before I joined, Raphael had never done any permanent projects, and by the time I left, we'd done about 5. So really just was able to change the game there. And one thing that I really got to learn that I don't think has been turned into a process yet is how do you sell an experiential project? I was super interested in the business side of creativity. I was a good designer, but I wanted to know, like, what were we doing that was helping us win these projects? And there are 3 things that I think really changed the game for me. The first one being client empathy. And that's kind of what I was talking about with presenting to them in an immersive way, in an interactive way, something where they're part of the process and they can understand something much more intuitively than just looking at a PowerPoint. Research and profiling. You guys probably already do this, but really looking into who is the decision maker on the other side, what are their tastes, what's important to them, what are their values, how do they like to communicate. All these things are super important to getting them to say yes, and then immersive alignment. So using these real-time 3D tools to keep everybody on the same page, whether it's us concepting and designing the artworks. Once we got to bigger levels, we started hiring companies like UAP, who specialize in creating massive fabrications. They're engineers at heart, so working with folks like that. And then a lot of these projects, you have to coordinate with the city because now we're becoming permanent projects or operating in zones where all of a sudden we need to talk with the FAA or the Border Patrol, things like that. So now using this media that we're producing to communicate to everybody what's going to happen here. So this is the first project that I'll show you today. It's called Sphere Packing. So this is a custom interactive audio sculpture called Bach. So it consists of a orb made of galvanized steel, plus these little wooden shelves. And inside, those little black boxes with the orange lights, those are each a speaker. And this consists of 1,028 speakers, aka every single Johann Sebastian Bach composition ever written. So as you walk inside of this sphere, 1 light will turn on, 1 composition, and then 3, and then 9, and then 20, and then 100, and then 1,000. So you get to hear the totality of all of Bach's work at once. So this is a significant R&D investment, as you can imagine, and it builds upon years and years of work. So as someone goes in here, this software that our head of R&D fund program will go ahead and start triggering all these speakers. But as you can imagine, selling this idea to an investor or collector was very difficult to do. So this is really where I got to come in and help out. We had a collector we had a relationship with based out of Turkey who was, I believe, a steel magnate, very interested in interactive artworks, and really had to convince him that this was going to be something worthy of doing. So part of that is now taking things like Rhino and Grasshopper, these 3D and parametric design tools, and Unreal, and turning those very technical 3D models into real-time ready 3D models, and then being able to communicate those to stakeholders in virtual reality. So we would present information kind of like what you're seeing here. The technical information that really sells the idea that this is totally possible. So that's kind of the left side here. The demo or prototype of the software that we're going to create, and then kind of packaging it all together into a virtual reality experience that the collector could see and understand and basically say to us, oh, I get it. It's pretty much done, right? Before we've actually really lifted a finger designing this project. So having all of these puzzle pieces together is really what helped us sell this idea to this collector who really has no idea about technology, right? Like their business is the big business of steel and dealing with mines and refining steel and shipping it around and stuff like that. This is another project called Speaking Willow. So this is one of, I think it was our second permanent artwork. So this is at the entryway to the Planet Word Museum in Washington, D.C. So Speaking Willow is a custom fabricated tree consisting of 400 speakers, aka all the languages of the world. So as someone walks into Planet Word Museum, which is a museum of language, they encounter this tree. It has all these speakers and lights hanging overhead. And as they walk underneath this tree, there are these cameras here at the top of the trunk that track your position in space and will trigger a speaker over your head as you walk. So as you walk underneath this tree, you naturally listen to all the languages of the world. So how do we get this project done? Well, of course, here again, real-time rendering and giving the collector a fly-through of the project was tantamount to actually, or paramount rather, to winning this project. This was a shortlisted competition, so we had to go up against 10 other artists. And I like to think that it was this sort of immersive media that really helped sell the idea to the collector. And the CEO and collector behind this project was Anne Hamilton. So who is Anne Hamilton? And this is where the research and profiling comes in. She is a former school teacher, an English teacher, who really wanted to create a museum that was not didactic. It wasn't teacherly, right? You're not being told, here's lessons about language. She wanted people to experience language, experience literature, experience all the amazing things that come with learning English and all these other languages, right? So it was really important to her, this idea that this space became a place where you're immersed in these ideas. And she had written this letter all about these sort of ideas and how her love for English balances out with her husband's love of math. And together they're really interested in the idea of education and helping spread education in ways that kind of resist the current model. So, you know, we really looked into that letter and tried to understand, like, what does this woman value? What's the kind of concept that she would really resonate with, right? And we wanted to make an artwork that would speak to her concepts and values, but also to our unique abilities as a studio. So this tree project came after the one I just showed you. I had worked on all these interactive audio speakers and mechanisms and software and hardware previously. So we decided to build upon that history, and that gave us a lot of confidence going into this. And here is the biggest project to date. So this is a full Turing installation called Atmospheric Memory. We built a venue out of over 50 shipping containers. This was at the courtyard of the Manchester Museum of Science and Industry out in the UK. And this consisted of over 30 artworks, 3,000 speakers, 30 plus projectors, tons of cameras and tracking devices, so much custom fabrication. Even the carpet had to be custom for a project like this, right? And this hallway is a long hallway of 3,000 speakers, again, like I was saying. So this was really an incredibly difficult project to work on because we had so many moving parts. The venue was not a real venue, and we constructed it ourselves. It was only going to be on show for about, I think it was 3 weeks or maybe 4 weeks. So a decently short runtime because it's so expensive to put these things on. But it was our first foray into touring an experience, an experiential activation, and having it travel around the world. So we learned a lot about how to take our installations that we've been doing before, the temporary ones, and then roll them into basically a product that we could ship around the world and sort of lease or rent out, right? So a lot of these installations, right, are typically temporary. You do it in a museum once, and then you really try to go find some other places to show it. With something like atmospheric memory, there is a schedule, right? This thing is traveling around, but basically once every 2 months, going to different cities throughout Europe, coming to the US, going to Australia, what have you. And there might even be multiple editions of it, so there might actually be 3 atmospheric memories traveling around the world all at the same time. So this project became one of the ways that we began to look into how can we turn these temporary events now into more sustainable creations that we can make money on. So of course, the first iteration of this installation, you lose money, right? All the upfront costs. And then as you do it again and again, you become leaner and meaner, and your margins start to go up. And then you're building the momentum and the marketing and press for these events. So now the ticket sales also go up as you go on. So here's me inside of the installation, working on pre-visualizing all the projectors, working on the media servers, and the custom software. Here's some touch designer work, very messy. And then of course, my favorite here is the little drawing sitemap I made explaining how everything gets cabled, where the water runs, all the NDI and Ethernet cables going to the media service and stuff like that. Of course, this is how all these events really come together, right? Like we here know the truth because we worked on them. But I think it's so funny. We work on all these high-end renderings, and at the end of the day, this is really what saves everyone's ass. But then the pandemic happened. All these projects are canceled or frozen. Everyone forced to work remotely, and creative people were the first to lay it off. We ended up doing a virtual event in the browser. It's called On Pulse to try to quickly pivot. And something I realized with this project was that, the browser can actually handle a lot of 3D, multimedia, real-time collaboration, a lot of cloud features. And this kind of spurred the idea for what eventually would become I started Foveate, is this became a way that not only could multiple people be in a space, but we could all be aligned around the same thing, be talking about it together. It was a multiplayer, interactive, and immersive experience. People could come to it, it had full sound, full interactivity. You could walk around, you could have video streams, you could chat. So it became this kind of seed that would grow later. So I worked there for a half decade and worked on over 100 projects while I was there. So I really got burnt out working on these sorts of installations. And I think honestly part of that was just going from such a small studio and doubling its size so quickly and not having the correct infrastructure and tools and training in place to really make the transition well. So, COVID was the time where I was kind of figured out, I'm done with this. So when I left there, I had a couple of questions. One of them being, how can I help the world have more amazing experiences? I love working on these projects. I love them, but they're very difficult to do, and not very many people can do them, and it's hard to raise money for them if you don't have a lot of experience in the storied history. So the people who end up getting the opportunity to do them is a very, very small group of people, and I think when we walk out our door, we want to have really awesome and amazing experiences, but it's just not something that is that common. So that's something that I wanted to help promote. And then how can I help people collaborate on these projects was a big question on my mind. So that's something I'll get into. And then how can I help creative people, agencies, designers, architects actually show their value? So that was something that I really wanted to tackle as well. And then that would lead to Foveate. So Foveate is my startup that I was just telling you guys about. Can you guys hear this? Or just me?
I don't hear anything.
Okay, that's fine. So Foveate's an online browser-based tool where you can upload all of your CAD, 3D, PDFs, renders, videos, and to basically pre-visualize an installation before it happens, with the ultimate point being to help sell these ideas to potential investors, collectors, institutions, developers, what have you, and then become a collaborative production platform where all the teammates can rally around and understand them all together. So it basically allows you to combine all sorts of different media types from all sorts of different 3D and CAD and rendering and video apps, and then be able to work on an event or experiential activation or interactive installation before it happens. So I'll just skip this here. But yeah, that's a short preview of Foveate, and I can show you guys a little bit more if you want to. I think before I jump into Foveate, the app itself, I'd just like to ask you guys if you have any questions or any comments before I dive in.
I have questions.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder because in one of the slides you showed you guys like using VR for pitches, right? VR headsets
Mm-hmm.
for pitches.
Mm-hmm.
And how much time do you like that is a lot of effort, you know, to put in for making demos for pitches. Like how much of effort time do you need to put in those? And
Yeah, so mm-hmm.
yeah, the second question is that like here, like in our agency, we always talk about making VR experiences, but those ideas, like they rarely happen because we are trying to talk to a very broad audience, and then the people would actually have a VR headset at home. It's like not many people do that, right? So we don't really get to do much of that. So would you say VR headset is better for pitching than for a real project?
Yes, so this is something that we talked about at the studio, and then later when I had an agency, it was a big topic as well, because it did focus on XR. But the virtual reality is much better for pitches for specific clients. So for example, one thing that we would do that I added to the process is a scoring system for all of our products, right? And we would only do a VR pitch once we got them to a certain level in our funnel or our process. So only if a client was like a really, really hot lead and the project had a big enough budget or big enough notoriety were we going to do a pitch in virtual reality. So let's say for like an art fair or something like that, we would not do a virtual reality pitch because we don't really need to. It doesn't really help our business. But for some of the installations I showed you, these are like minimum 6-figure to 7-figure, maybe even 8-figure projects for some of the biggest ones, right? So doing a virtual reality pitch is actually not that big of an investment, all things considered. For example, we had one project with Foster and Partners, the Pritzker Prize-winning architect Norman Foster studio for the Mexico City International Airport. So, this is a multi-billion-dollar airport, not even renovation, but just a brand new building. And we were shortlisted, or rather asked to propose a couple ideas for the main atrium. So the main lobby of the entire building. So they're doing a virtual reality pitch was actually super necessary, right? We had maybe like 30 minutes with Norman Foster and Fernando Romero, the Mexican architect of record, with the mayor of Mexico City and the ambassador, to basically fly them all through this idea and make sure that they remembered it. So it was significant investment in time, but we put a lot of time into that rather than putting it into a deck. So that was a 5-figure investment, but it was totally worth it. And we did go down to Mexico City and go to them in the office space. So it was a big deal for us. So I would say for certain clients, it can be a really big deal, and for certain projects. So that proposal was incredibly immersive. It was like a huge 360 projection that happened on the interior of the airport trussing. which was the entire ceiling was all curved, doubly curved, and stuff like that. So hundreds of square meters in diameter. It was impossible to understand the images alone. So it really made sense to do this in virtual reality. If there's a project that's like, just one big LED wall, you may not need to do it unless the spatial considerations are a big part of it. So I think, yeah, just picking and choosing when's the right time, budget-wise, when's the right time, project-wise in terms of what it requires, then it can be a good thing to do. So for example, I think you told me that the Dali Museum is one of your big collaborators, and the labs works with them a lot. If you wanted to propose something to them that was a more of an entire exhibition, then doing a virtual reality walkthrough could be incredibly important and totally sell the idea, especially because you work with them a number of times and they trust you guys, and obviously you have a good relationship. So then I think would be the ideal time to do something like that.
Gotcha.
In terms of giving virtual reality experiences to the public, I generally would not encourage it right now, just because the distribution, like you were saying, is not there yet. Nobody really has headsets. People are mostly at home either streaming on Netflix or something like that, or playing games. Roblox, Minecraft is super popular with Gen Z, or on social media, or consuming Instagram or TikTok. Generally, no one's on headsets, so I would skip that for now.
Yes. I think I have a second question is about the touring installation, the atmospheric memory. It's like huge production it looks like. And you mentioned it goes to all like different countries. So are those like usually at museums? And do you think it's only like possible because of the reputation of this artist? Like he already is like a big name in this field, right?
That particular project is a collaboration with MIF, the Manchester International Festival. So they get a lot of money in grant funding from their state, the UK. So that's how they fund that. And then we had developed a relationship with them over a number of years. So that's how that came together. Is it only possible because Raphael's been doing it for so long? It's possible that he made all those, or we made all those because we had such a history doing that. It's possible because he has some notoriety, so the marketing is somewhat there in terms of him being able to attract certain numbers of people. But I would not say that that is the main limiting factor, because our world is small. None of you have probably heard of Raphael Lozano Hemmer, right? He's not Anish Kapoor. He's not Olafur Eliasson, right? Yet he's somebody who has made these touring installations. And that particular one is a collaboration with a cultural body. So that's where the funding came from. But in your guys' case, like you guys do Super Bowl ads, you did the Got Milk campaign, right? So you obviously have the notoriety and the history there, just in a different sphere. If you wanted to turn that into something else, I think it would totally be possible. There's things like Mercer Labs here in New York City, down in FIDI. Nobody knows who the main director of that project is. I think he might be a Nepo baby, I don't know. But like, there's no name attached to that, right? It's just Mercer Labs. And they've been just pumping a ton of money into marketing and turning that into a tourist attraction, right? So it's definitely possible. That one's permanent, which is actually harder, I would say, in some instances than a touring installation. But yeah, I would say it's totally possible.
Gotcha. Okay. I think that's it from me.
Okay. Yeah, so I'll just show you guys maybe a little brief intro to Foveate and explain kind of why I made it and how it works. So basically, Foveate's an interactive previs creation platform with the main intent of selling this installation or project to someone, right? So here's an example that's a more typical architectural example. This is something that we did for a little demo for Foster and Partners. Excuse me here. Reloading this, my internet's kind of slow. Maybe because I have Teams open. But with a lot of these projects, the main idea is how can we give clients a very intuitive and interactive experience that transcends a deck. So something that we realized post-COVID is that we're all basically remote now. The idea that we're working on these very spatial or interactive and experiential activations remotely is kind of funny, right? Because these are things that inherently resist 2D interpretation, and yet we're trying to explain them in just regular PowerPoints. And I can tell you that whenever I've sent a PDF to a client explaining one of these things, there's just crickets on the other side because it's so comprehensible. So we wanted to know, how can we just very quickly and easily share basically a previs that's a very much low cost alternative to doing like one of these really expensive VR pitches, and give them a pitch in that way. So we mostly work right now with more architects, engineers, construction, and then experiential designers. So firms who are a little bit more focused on the experiential side rather than the ad side. So that's kind of where the consulting that I was talking about comes in, where the firms who want, or agencies who want to come to experiential, they'll contact us and work with us and kind of we'll help them understand how they can make that jump. So, one example, I don't know if you guys know the team at Good Company here in New York. They're like a small agency. They've done a lot of really awesome video work for like the Sphere and different fashion shows, a lot of documentaries, stuff like that, music. But they've really been getting into experiential. We've been talking with them, I think, since last year, and trying to help them break into that territory more. So they just started representing their first experiential designer, Sayoko Osada. She's based out of here in New York as well, Japanese designer, and does a lot of concert and scenography and set design. So that's helping them get an edge in that space. So I have this deck here. And this is kind of getting to what I was talking about before, about how basically how we present this work is totally broken on the experiential side of sharing these really technical drawings, these really unrealistic renders and Photoshop collages, and basically giving clients a poor experience, trying to understand this very expensive, very complex, very technologically complicated thing that we're trying to do. And they really just, hate receiving these, right? Like, they have to go get a deck in their Outlook and then go download it. Maybe it's on their phone, it's too small. They have to go put it on their computer and read it big later. It's just a horrible experience. 8% of these people don't even want a PDF, right? Like, they just want a frictionless experience. Firms are spending a crazy amount of time just designing these things, about 41 hours per person on a deck. And then the cost is becoming increasingly expensive, right? For labor, software specialists, all the time that goes into these costs about $30K per presentation. And that's when you multiply this by hundreds of RFPs and design reviews and client meetings, it's just a super expensive and tedious process. So we're trying to help people really stop using these outdated methods. PowerPoint and InDesign are from 1993, right? So they're just as old as I am. And how can we give people an actual experience in the design and the pitch, right? So I took, or tried to take, a lot of my knowledge and experience in designing these really immersive and experiential projects, and then apply that to the pitch process, right? How can we turn the pitch now into an experience in of itself? So Fovate is the way that we're doing that. And of course, it's supposed to be easy and combining everything holistically for people. So the idea is that you can combine everything that you use on these projects, whether it's a Matterport scan, a PDF, the background of your company, or PDF drawings, CAD and 3D models, renders, maybe you AI generate them, videos, that would be the content on the LED wall, let's say, and putting them all together inside of one interactive scene. And then really intending this to be not just like a fancy tool like Unreal Engine, where it's a game engine that we're kind of misusing to pitch projects, but rather designing Foveate from the ground up as being something that's for business, something that is supposed to be easy to use, multimedia, have all sorts of roles and permissions, and basically be able to leave clients with some compelling sales collateral that's immersive, that they can keep on interacting with, that they can engage with. I think one thing that was interesting for me back when I was running an agency, Third Access, is that we were doing all these KPIs, telling our clients, oh, we increased engagement time, conversion rates, our click rate was this, and providing them with all these sort of statistics and metrics to try to prove our value. Yet, why have we never actually put this into our own pitch process, right? So that's kind of what helped us transition from being an agency to a startup, is saying, hey, let's take these engagement analytics, these KPIs, and start putting them into our own pitching process. And then eventually this tool that we built initially for ourselves to pitch projects kind of outgrew the agency itself, right? And decided to become a startup. So the whole idea behind this is how do we actually reduce the misalignment working on these giant installations, give everybody an easier time working on them? How can we help convert clients better, right? Get them to sign off on these ideas faster, and then reducing the risk in the budget and the costs that comes building these giant installations. How can we kind of help everybody work on them better instead of just sending all these random PDFs back and forth, images in Slack, zip files, and emails, what have you? How can we just have one online platform we're all working around? All this to help make the communication better, to help people win more business, to have fewer change orders and last-minute changes. That's the whole point of Foveate. We don't need to get into this. This is not a sales call, but yeah, that's Foveate in a nutshell. And I'm so glad that I got to talk to you guys here today. And yeah, thanks for having me. And please, everybody, feel free to ask questions and so on.
Does it work with Gaussian splatter?
It does, yes.
Yeah, because I remember my director was like so psyched about it. Like we're so psyched, but we haven't. Martin was like so psyched about it. Like we're like excited, but we didn't really get to use it for anything.
Yeah. So it's really targeted more towards people who are designing built projects, whether they're architecture engineer, construction, creative technologists, builders. So, for an agency like yours, in its current state, it's probably not like a super necessary purchase or tool for you guys. But if it's for the right project, I think it would make a lot of sense.
I feel like my takeaway because the first time I didn't hear you talk a lot about Foveate. So this time I did get to know a bit more. And I think one takeaway I have from it is like you said, like transcending beyond just a 2D deck. And then even it's not for something that's like architecture or space related, we wanted to do that in our pitch as well. Like a lot of times creatives come to us with, this AR experience, or transform the NBA, the court, basketball court into something, and then the users there can see some AR stuff happening on the court, perfectly matched to the court, something cool on their phone. And that is also it can be like a potential use of.
Yeah. So actually, we used to be our agency, and we would visualize projects like that exactly inside of what was the early version of Foveate. So showing people like, oh, here's an AR experience. Instead of us, it's so hard to build an AR experience proposal because you really have to just go do the work before you pitch it. So we figured out how to use this tool basically to give people an idea of what the AR experience is going to be like. That's interactive, that's 3D, that has audio and video before we actually create the experience. So it became sort of the prototyping and previs engine that clients could look at and be like, okay, I understand what it's going to look like basically from like a bird's eye view in an interactive way. And yeah, we were able to work with companies like Snap to help deliver a bunch of AR projects that way, because it was just faster to previs with them in this tool, which is kind of funny because they make AR technology, yet they're hiring us to pre-visualize and concept these 10 different projects for them.
Yeah, yeah, it's a great like middle point between the 2D tech and like actually building a prototype. And I feel like a prototype can like really add a lot to the pitch meetings. Like our creatives always come to us. So recently we figured out an easy way to do like voice agent, so you can like talk to, and we can like rip a celebrity's voice and then have it talk to you, and then it's just brings a lot of success like in the pitch meeting. So I feel like small things like that can really help. Yeah.
Yes, for sure. I mean, the interactive component is huge. So that's something that I realized working on these projects at the art studio was when I was pitching in when I was pitching in Unreal Engine, putting all these renders and videos into a deck because we were remote because of COVID, they just didn't hit the same anymore because clients weren't interacting with them, right? They were just receiving now basically the same thing that everybody else was giving them, which was just like a Google Slides deck with some images and text and a couple videos. So it became instantly forgettable because that's what everybody was doing. So there was no way for us to stand out anymore. And that really hurt our business. We had to lay off a couple of people because we kind of lost the edge of being able to go there and show them an interactive experience, kind of wow them with that stuff and secure the projects. With Foveat, kind of the idea is how do we give people an interactive experience super easily remotely in a way that's asynchronous. We don't need to be on a call with them. They can walk themselves through an idea. And something we found is that we'll send them a link to a Foveat pitch, and they'll start sharing it with people because they're like, I haven't seen anything like this. They don't even know what to call it. Most of them have never seen an interactive 3D experience on the web. So it's kind of funny. Like they would show it to their kids, and their kids would be like, "Oh, this is cool. This is just like Roblox. This is just like Minecraft or something," right? Because they're so fluent in this technology, growing up with iPads. Yet, yeah, the decision makers have to catch up.
Nice, nice. Yeah, I think when I invited you, I sort of like have more in mind like the production side of like projects that are actually happening. But I feel like my biggest takeaway is probably like the pitching side of things.
Yeah, I mean
And
that's how
yeah,
we
which is
like.
closely related to the business. Yeah.
I mean, that honestly is how we drove our whole business. The hardware side is so expensive, and something that I recommended there before I left was just standardizing a lot of the tooling that we were using and stop doing everything custom. And this is kind of like you were getting at, Sean. It's like, of course, every business wants to do a custom project every single time, right? And give their client like this new, brand new, shiny thing. But something that we figured out over the half decade I was there is that we actually need to iterate and learn how to grow each project so that we can minimize our basically like upfront cost for each project. You want to build these little R&D bubbles slowly, like that speaker project, right? Like we just started with like a couple speakers at first, and then that grew to like being a project with 50, and then 100, okay, 1,000, now 3,000. So we're really able to use R&D effectively in that way, and also standardize a lot of the software choices. So like something that I was telling them is, we should only have people using Rhino, Unreal Engine, Touch Designer. Like we don't need to use open frameworks and processing and like all these other tools just because someone's good at it, right? Like
Oh
we
wow,
should.
yeah, because like till this day, my toolbox is still like a mess. It's like everything.
Right,
So
right. And see, the problem is if you ever leave, right, then all of a sudden that knowledge is gone. And like that doesn't work for us because we were a studio where these artworks are traveling. They're in collectors' homes, they're in museums permanently, right? If it goes wrong, the person who designed it has left the studio and they only knew that custom piece of software that they wrote, then we're effed, right? It's like all of a sudden we're on the hook for that. And these artworks cost a lot of money. People paid 5, 6, 7 figures for these, right? So you can't not have it work. So that's
are
where,
you saying it sits at someone's home right now? Like a collector's home? Like
yeah, some of them, yeah. I mean,
okay.
collectors are rich people.
Yeah.
These are billionaires, right? Buying
Yeah.
7-figure artwork is nothing to them. So, and they care about it working. They want to show it off, right? They want to say,
Totally.
hey, this other billionaire, come to my house and check out this artwork I have, right? It better be working when that happens, or else they're gonna be really mad.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Uh
standardization of tools and processes was huge.
That's great takeaway. Yeah, I think
Yeah, I
that's
would
it
say,
from me. Yeah.
yeah, just a one note that I want to hammer home is if you guys are thinking about getting into more experiential, because I know you've done a lot of these really cool like Dali and BMW projects, I would say think about how to iterate on them. Think about how to turn them into bigger versions of themselves as you go. I don't know if you guys have experienced this, but when I talk to a lot of other experiential agencies, mostly from the ad side, the budgets are shrinking. The campaigns are decreasing in number. Like Porsche, for example, they were working with Goodco, and they used to do like 8 campaigns a year. Now maybe it's one when it comes to typical TV, right? So that's another reason why they're trying to get into experiential is because now social media is blowing up. It costs a brand $10,000 to go hire a pretty good TikTok creator to give them a huge return on value. The EMV on these things is insane, right? So it's becoming very difficult to play in that market when a video of a dude drinking ocean spray bottle as he's listening to Fleetwood Mac skateboarding down California highway goes viral and gets 30 million views, right? So experiential is becoming the thing where brands, agencies, and people are all starting to kind of coalesce around, where people are getting tired with social media. They're getting tired of AI generated stuff, right? They want to go meet in person. Gen Z's number one concern is community, right? They want to see how can I show up and meet people who are like-minded, who share my values. So where do people convene, right? Experiences, places. That's why activations are becoming more and more important. Things
Yeah,
like
it's
Taylor
it's
Swift and
funny.
Beyonce's
So
concert are
like
blowing up.
yeah, so like a few weeks back, I was running like a ChatGPT deep research. So they would like go out, like takes like 20, 30 minutes. They will put together like a report for you, right? So I asked it to do deep research on like the advertising landscape and like the transition of it and all that. And it showed me like say the TV has been going through like slow but steady decline. And
Decline.
then decline, yes. And also something that we have experienced here too, like the clients are moving more like towards in-house. So they're doing a lot of stuff in-house now, and then they just do project-based work with agencies. But one thing that is on the rise, well, according to ChatGPT, is the experiential design stuff. So I'm like, yes.
Yeah. One company that's one of our friends that we consult with is Framestore. So, giant VFX company. They do like Geico, right? They've just seen a huge decline in TV, and like places like the Mill, one of their rivals, has totally collapsed because, like you're saying,
Yeah.
these branches, they don't want to pay this much money for a Geico spot, and they're looking at AI and they're like, I could AI generate this. We have all of our data of the Geico from the past 10 years. Why can't we just, spin up an AI server that spits out, this gecko saying all these different lines? So that's what, they're getting into. And, companies like Framestore, they're trying to diversify and get into experiential via theme parks, right? And they're seeing that the ROI for stuff like theme parks is just way higher because people want to come to in-person events. They want to get out of the digital sphere that's so toxic now, right? The algorithms are unfortunately so good that I get hooked on this thing for like hours a day. I check it, I'm just like, oh my god, I've been on TikTok like for 2 hours today. It's crazy. And then I'm like, I gotta go outside and touch grass and like see my friends. So we're seeing like a huge bounce back in experiential. If you look at the investments, Disney has just put in $60 billion into new theme parks, resorts, cruise ships. Goldman Sachs has acquired Tate. So Tate Towers, the giant experiential company that does rigging and trussing in most of the concerts in the US. Goldman Sachs is now the major investor in that company. The Olympics is coming to LA in 2028. So there's like $1 billion going to that. The Sphere is opening its second location. The most expensive building ever is opening another location. Are you crazy? Out in, I believe it's Riyadh. Or no, sorry, Abu Dhabi.
Oh, I think it's in London. Oh, I thought the second one is going to be in London.
Oh, no, it's in the Middle East.
Okay.
You might be thinking of another one, Cosm. Cosm is another immersive theater, and they're opening up more locations. That big one, the first one's in LA, and I think they're doing another one in
Middle East
London.
is always super surreal. Just
Yeah.
like Las Vegas.
They got the budgets for it.
Yeah.
I think you're muted. Oh, okay.
I am. I was just checking. It is Abu Dhabi.
Okay.
For this year. Anyway, unfortunately we are at time, but that was
Oh, there we
super
go.
fun. It was so great to learn everything you're up to, Kitae. What a fascinating career path you've had. And thank you so much for sharing all that with us. So cool.
Oh, you're very welcome. And thank you very much for having me.
That was great. Thank you, Shan, for making it happen.
Yeah, putting this all
Oh no,
together.
I wish I organized it better. But lesson learned.
Well, hopefully the recording works, and feel free to disseminate that.
Fingers
crossed. Thank you, Megan. Thanks, Alex. Alrighty, guys.
Thanks, you guys.
Thanks for having
Take
me.
care.
Bye now.
Bye.